Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. As we continue with Part 15, The Cult of the Angel Peacock, from the Adepts in the Eastern Esoteric Tradition by Manly Palmer Hall. Part 4, The Mystics of Islam. The Cult of the Angel Peacock. The Yazidis are a small religious sect of uncertain origin, dwelling in the neighborhood of Mosul on the Tigris River in northern Iraq, near the ruins of ancient Nineveh. In the 15th century, the Yazidis numbered approximately 250,000. Since that time, they have been subjected to many persecutions, and the membership has dwindled to not more than 50,000. The basic faith of these people is derived from early contacts with the numerous streams of religious tradition that have flowed through the valley of the Euphrates. Isaiah Joseph, who made an extensive survey of the sacred books and traditions of the Yazidis, writes, "They say they have taken fasting and sacrifice from Islam, baptism from Christians, prohibition of foods from the Jews, their way of worship from the idolaters, dissimulation of doctrine from the Rafidis, Shiites, human sacrifice and transmigration from the pre-Islamic paganism of the Arabs and from the Sabians." Although most historians and writers of fiction have assumed that the Yazidis were devil worshippers, the sacred writings and oral teachings of the sect do not sustain this assumption. A minority group of this kind, surrounded by powerful religions whose doctrines they refused to accept, naturally was regarded with intense disfavor. In the Yazidi theology, the supreme deity, who was the first cause of the world, created the universe and then entrusted it to the keeping of 7 gods, each of whom rules for 10,000 years. The present regent is Melek Taus. When his age or time is complete, the authority will pass to the next deity in the divine order. In the Al-Jilway, a sacred writing of the Yazidis, Melek Taus speaks through one of his prophets. "I am ever present to help all who trust in me and call upon me in time of need. There is no place in the universe that knows not my presence. I participate in all the affairs which those who are without, outsiders, call evil because their nature is not such as they approve. Every age has its own manager who directs affairs according to my decrees. This office is changeable from generation to generation, that the ruler of this world and his chiefs may discharge the duties of their respective offices, everyone in his own term." Although the enemies of the sect insist that Melek Taus is the chief of the fallen angels, this is inconsistent with the basic concept which affirms 7 gods to be the appointed representatives of the sovereign power that ordains all things in nature. Here we are certainly in the presence of Asiatic esotericism, and Melek Taus is the lord of the material world and therefore the custodian of souls that have fallen into a state of generation. The Yazidis venerate Melek Taus under a peculiar symbol which they call the sanjak. This is the figure of a peacock, described with a swelling breast, diminutive head and widespread tail. Commonly made of brass and crudely formed, this bird stands upon a base resembling a tall, slender candlestick. In the religious ceremonies, 2 lamps with 7 burners are associated with the central device. There are reports that magnificent forms of the peacock symbol, fashioned of pure gold and encrusted with gems, exist, but these have not been seen except by members of the order. Originally, there were 7 of the sacred sanjaks, one of which presided over each of the 7 districts of the Yazidi communion. Some of these images were captured, that is, stolen by the Islamites, in an effort to repress the faith. But the Yazidis only smiled, explaining that the idols taken from them were merely copies, and that the originals were in a secure place. The Yazidis believe in transmigration and reincarnation. They teach that the souls of the virtuous are reborn in human bodies, but those who have sinned against the faith or the faithful may come back to this world in the forms of animals. They practice mystical rites and disciplines and believe that Melek Taus can speak to them through the lips of sanctified persons. If the messages given at various times differ or conflict, it is of no consequence. In the Black Book of the Yazidis, it is stated that the sanjaks were fashioned originally by one of the 7 gods, who gave them into the keeping of Solomon the king. In the same work, it is stated definitely that Melek Taus descended to the earth in a remote time, dwelt with men, and delivered to them his doctrines, rules, and traditions. The laws which he bestowed became a sacred heritage and were passed down from generation to generation. There is constant insistence that the books and traditions of the order shall be concealed from all unbelievers, lest the texts be perverted and the mysteries profaned. In the period between November 1845 and April 1847, Mr. Austin Henry Layard, DCL, carried on extensive excavations at Nimrod. While at this site, he made several excursions into adjacent regions. He visited the mountain retreats of the Nestorians and was privileged to attend the important yearly festival of the Yazidis. The details of his adventures are set forth in his book Nineveh and its Remains. Mr. Layard was especially successful in establishing the most friendly relations between himself and the native peoples, and was therefore permitted to be present at rites and ceremonies not usually accessible to foreigners. His summary of the Yazidi community is therefore of the greatest interest to scholars, as his information was secured first-hand, and he was able to make numerous discreet inquiries among leaders of the sect. It was Layard's opinion that the mysteries of the sect can be traced to a form of worship introduced by Semiramis, Queen of Babylon, but he is convinced that the modern Yazidis practice none of the debased rites associated with the Babylonian cult. He found them a quiet and moral people of inoffensive demeanor and most kindly disposition. The rituals which Layard saw, though animated and including ceremonial dancing, were all of the most moral kind. He insists that no acts such as the Jewish law had declared to be impure are permitted. Layard testified that the Yazidis recognized one supreme being but did not appear to offer any direct prayer or sacrifice to him. They especially feared the power of the fallen angel. Layard writes, "The name of the evil spirit is, however, never mentioned, and any allusion to it by others so vexes and irritates them that it is said they have put to death persons who have wantonly outraged their feelings by its use. So far is their dread of offending the evil principle carried, that they carefully avoid every expression which may resemble in sound the name of Satan, or the Arabic word for accursed." According to Layard, when the Yazidis speak of the devil, they do so with reverence as Melek Taus, King Peacock, or Melek El-Kut, the mighty angel. The Sheikh Nasr admitted to him that they possessed a figure of a bird, but insisted that it be regarded as a symbol, and not as an idol. Without an adequate knowledge of the esoteric doctrine of the Yazidis, it is difficult to reconcile various accounts and reports, even if they be derived from members of the sect. According to Layard, they believe Satan to be the chief of the angelic host, now suffering punishment for his rebellion against the divine will, but still all-powerful, and to be restored hereafter to his high estate in the celestial hierarchy. He must be conciliated and reverenced, they say. For as he now has the power of doing evil to mankind, so will he hereafter have the power of rewarding them. From this it cannot actually be inferred that these people worship evil, rather that they are disinclined to antagonize the fallen angel. They live virtuous and honorable lives, so that when Satan is redeemed and becomes reunited with the principle of good, they may then enjoy rewards appropriate to their conduct. The men of the deserts and the mountains have always been of practical mind. With other old religions, they share the conviction that it is not necessary to make offerings to the good principle, because by its very nature it will not injure them. Rather, they are concerned with the hazards and dangers of living, personified as an adversary who must be appeased, lest he bring immediate calamity upon those who incur his enmity. Were they truly devil worshippers, they would not have venerated Christ, who to them was a great angel who had taken the form of man. If we understand by their concept of Satan the prince of this world referred to in the New Testament, who is to govern the interval between the fall of man and his redemption, and interpret this in the experience of a simple and isolated group, the apparent conflict of ideas becomes comprehensible, if not entirely consistent. The Yazidis hold the Old Testament in great reverence, believing in the cosmogony of Genesis, the deluge, and other biblical events. They do not reject either the New Testament or the Quran. They look upon Muhammad as a prophet, and also venerate Abraham and the other patriarchs. They look to a second coming of Christ, and also expect the reappearance of the Imam Mahdi. The Sheikh Adi is regarded as their great saint, but Layard was unable to learn any particulars concerning him. Even his date of existence is uncertain, and the Sheikh Nasr asserted that he lived before Muhammad. This Sheikh Adi had communion with celestial personages and performed miracles. Legendary suggests that he might be included among Near Eastern adepts. Layard also suspected that from their chronology, the Yazidis might have been connected with the cult of Manes. At the time Layard attended their ceremonies, they chanted an ancient melody, a part of which was called the Song of the Angel Jesus. The language was so corrupt, however, that the words were unintelligible. All this symbolism is part of the usual paraphernalia of a lodge of initiates or adept teachers. The 7 brazen peacocks stand for the masters of the Yazidis, and behind the outer form of the sect is a secret doctrine of ideas. The persecutions through which they have passed have caused the Yazidis to protect their esoteric cult in every way possible. It is extremely doubtful if any non-Yazidi understands the mystery of the Dark Star with its brooding regent. Occasionally, some fragment of this old wisdom religion comes to light, but for the most part, the secrets are reserved for those who have solved the mystery of the angel peacock. Thank you for watching. And please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.